Have you ever seen a massive skyscraper or a grand building, completely abandoned, standing lifeless like a ghost of the past? Why were they built? What went wrong? And why do these enormous structures still stand empty today? From a hotel that was never opened to a skyscraper turned into a slum, today we're diving into 8 of the world's largest abandoned buildings, and the unbelievable stories behind them. Would you dare step inside these forgotten giants? Let's find out. Ryugyong Hotel, Pyongyang, North Korea. Imagine a 105-story pyramid-shaped skyscraper towering over Pyongyang, a structure so massive it could have been a shining symbol of North Korea's prosperity. Instead, it has earned the eerie nickname, the Hotel of Doom. Sounds like something out of a dystopian novel, right? But the reality is even stranger. Back in 1987, North Korea launched this ambitious project to outshine South Korea's rapid development. The goal? To build the world's tallest hotel, a shimmering beacon of progress. But just 5 years later, construction screeched to a halt. The Soviet Union collapsed, North Korea's economy crumbled, and suddenly, there was no money left to finish the extravagant dream. For decades, the Ryugyong Hotel stood abandoned, its hollow concrete skeleton casting an ominous shadow over Pyongyang. In 2008, construction briefly resumed, and an Egyptian telecom company even installed glass panels to make it look finished. But here's the twist, it's still completely empty. No guests, no staff, not even a functioning elevator. Just a lifeless, glass-covered husk looming over the city like a ghost of what could have been. Even today, the Ryugyong Hotel remains sealed off, a bizarre relic of political ambition, economic collapse, and a government that refuses to admit defeat. Would you dare to spend a night in the Hotel of Doom if it ever opened? Goldin Finance 117, Tianjin, China. China is famous for building some of the tallest, most breathtaking skyscrapers on the planet. But what happens when a billion-dollar dream turns into a half-finished nightmare? Enter Goldin Finance 117, a 117-story mega skyscraper in Tianjin, also known as the walking stick due to its slim, towering design. This behemoth was meant to rival the Burj Khalifa and redefine Tianjin's skyline. The plan was to create an ultra-luxurious financial hub with offices, hotels, and observation decks stretching nearly 2,000 feet into the sky. Construction started in 2008, but things quickly took a turn. First, the 2008 financial crisis hit, slowing down progress. Then, China's economy started shifting, and suddenly, demand for high-end office space wasn't what it used to be. In 2015, just as the final floors were about to be completed, everything stopped. No more workers, no more progress, just an unfinished shell of steel and glass standing awkwardly in the skyline, waiting for a future that may never come. Even today, Goldin Finance 117 remains in limbo. Too expensive to demolish, too unfinished to use. A monument to overconfidence, bad timing, and the unpredictability of the global economy. Would you go to the top of a 2,000-foot tower if you knew it had been abandoned for years? Sathorn Unique Tower, Bangkok. What happens when an ultra-luxury skyscraper turns into an abandoned ghost tower? You get Sathorn Unique Tower, Bangkok's most infamous unfinished high-rise. Standing 49 stories tall, it was meant to be an elite condominium complex with breathtaking views of the Chao Phraya River. But today, it's nothing more than a decaying skeleton, covered in graffiti, mystery, and spine-chilling urban legends. The downfall of Sathorn Unique began with the 1997 Asian financial crisis. The developer ran out of money, and construction halted overnight. But instead of a glamorous landmark, the half-built structure became an urban explorer's paradise, and one of the eeriest places in Bangkok. Over the years, rumors started to spread. Some say dark spirits haunt the unfinished floors. Others claim it was built on an old burial ground, cursing the project from the start. Tourists and thrill-seekers often sneak in, braving the crumbling stairwells to get a glimpse of the city from its eerie heights. But with no safety measures in place, climbing the tower is dangerous and illegal, and more than a few daredevils have met tragic fates inside its abandoned walls. Despite occasional talks of renovation, the Sathorn Unique Tower remains frozen in time, a chilling monument to economic collapse and unfinished dreams. Would you climb Bangkok's ghost tower if you had the chance? Plaza Tower, New Orleans. In the heart of New Orleans, an abandoned giant looms over the city. The Plaza Tower, once a symbol of modern architecture, now stands empty, a toxic, crumbling relic of the past. But this isn't just another unfinished building. This one was abandoned because it was too dangerous to live in. Built in 1969, Plaza Tower was the third tallest building in Louisiana and was home to offices, apartments, and upscale businesses. But over time, something sinister was growing inside its walls: toxic mold and asbestos. Workers and residents started getting sick. The air inside became a breathing hazard and lawsuits began piling up. By 2002, the owners had no choice but to shut it down, locking its doors forever. For over 2 decades, Plaza Tower has stood as a ghostly shell, covered in broken windows and graffiti. Developers have tried to bring it back to life, but the cost of removing the deadly toxins is astronomical. Today, it's nothing more than an empty, decaying skyscraper, rotting in plain sight. Some say it should be demolished, others dream of a revival. But for now, it remains one of the most toxic, abandoned buildings in America. A cautionary tale of how even the grandest buildings can turn against their creators. Would you dare step inside this poisoned skyscraper? Burj Al Murr, Beirut. In the heart of Beirut stands a 34-story concrete monster, known as Burj Al Murr, a skyscraper that never got to be what it was meant to be. This tower was supposed to be a shimmering financial center, a hub of luxury and commerce. Instead, it became a brutal battlefield, riddled with bullet holes and haunted by the ghosts of war. Construction started in the 1970s and everything seemed on track for Beirut to get its next big landmark. But then, civil war erupted. The half-finished tower was never completed, never furnished, never even given a proper purpose. Instead, during the brutal Lebanese civil war, it became a military outpost and sniper nest, used by various factions to take down enemies from its towering height. Today, Burj Al Murr stands frozen in time, an eerie reminder of destruction and broken dreams. Its unfinished floors are empty, its exposed concrete is scarred with bullet marks, and its hollow shell looms over the city like a ghostly giant. Despite many proposals to renovate or demolish it, the tower remains untouched, a symbol of Lebanon's turbulent past. It's a place where no one lives, no one works, and no one dares to go. A skyscraper built for the future, only to become a relic of war. Would you step inside a tower that was never meant to be a battlefield but became one anyway? Torre de David, Caracas. Imagine a 45-story skyscraper with no elevators, no running water, and no legal owners. That's Torre de David, the infamous abandoned high-rise in Caracas, Venezuela, which became a makeshift home for thousands of squatters, a vertical slum in the sky. Construction of the tower began in the 1990s, intended to be a cutting-edge financial center. But when Venezuela's economy crashed, so did the project. The developers went bankrupt, and the half-finished tower was left to rot. But then, something unexpected happened. Homeless families moved in. By the early 2000s, over 3,000 people were living in Torre de David, transforming it into a self-sufficient, lawless city in the sky. The lower floors became markets, barbershops, and even a church. Residents used makeshift pulley systems to bring up water and supplies, and families built homes inside the unfinished offices. But life in Torre de David was anything but safe. Crime ran rampant, and with no elevators, residents had to climb up to 45 stories on foot. Eventually, in 2014, the government evicted everyone, leaving the skyscraper empty once again. Now it stands as a hollow, lifeless shell, too expensive to finish, too massive to tear down. Once a symbol of financial ambition, then a refuge for the desperate, Torre de David is now nothing but a ghost town in the sky. Could you imagine living in a skyscraper with no doors, no water, and no safety? Pruitt-Igoe Housing Complex, St. Louis. Imagine a futuristic housing complex designed to be a symbol of hope and progress. That was the dream behind Pruitt-Igoe, a 33-building high-rise housing project built in St. Louis in the 1950s. It was meant to provide modern, affordable housing for low-income families, a utopian vision of urban renewal. Instead, it became one of the biggest failures in architectural history. At first, everything seemed perfect. The sleek buildings had spacious apartments, elevators, and even green spaces. But within a decade, the dream collapsed. Poor management, rising crime, and lack of maintenance turned Pruitt-Igoe into a nightmare. Elevators stopped working, garbage piled up, and residents felt trapped in an unsafe, crumbling environment. By the 1960s, the complex was overrun with gang violence, poverty, and neglect. Things got so bad that the US government decided to demolish it, not just part of it, but the entire complex. By the mid-1970s, the once promising housing project was completely erased from existence, a failed experiment in urban planning. Today, the land where it stood remains mostly empty, as if the city itself wants to forget what happened there. Pruitt-Igoe wasn't just a housing failure, it was a lesson in what happens when vision and reality don't align. What started as a futuristic solution to housing needs ended in total destruction. Could history repeat itself with modern mega-projects? Wonderland Amusement Park, Beijing. Imagine walking through a fairy tale castle, but instead of laughter and joy, all you hear is the whistling wind and the echo of your own footsteps. Welcome to Wonderland, an abandoned amusement park near Beijing, once planned to be China's version of Disneyland. In the 1990s, developers had an ambitious vision: build the largest amusement park in Asia, packed with roller coasters, magical castles, and family fun. But there was one problem: they never got the land rights. Local farmers refused to sell their land and financial problems started piling up. By 1998, construction was completely abandoned, leaving behind a half-built kingdom of decay. For over a decade, the unfinished medieval castle and skeletal roller coasters stood eerily in the middle of nowhere, attracting only photographers, urban explorers, and ghost hunters. Some locals believed the place was cursed, while others turned it into a makeshift farmland. Eventually, in 2013, the entire site was demolished, erasing Wonderland from history before it even had a chance to exist. It's one of the strangest failures in theme park history, a place meant to bring joy, but instead became a haunting reminder of overconfidence, greed, and bad planning. Imagine walking through an abandoned theme park. Would you find it exciting or terrifying? These buildings were meant to be symbols of success, but instead they became monuments of failure, mystery, and lost dreams. Some still stand, waiting for a second chance, while others are slowly crumbling into history. Which one fascinated you the most? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey through forgotten architecture, hit that like button, subscribe to DwellScape, and stay tuned for more fascinating stories from the world of design and construction. See you in the next one.